During 9/11,
At the time of 9/11, I was in math class when September 11th happened.
I was at Squadron Officer School at Maxwell Air Force Base.
I was, I don't know, three years through an ROTC program, so I was kind of already pretty sure that the Air Force was where I was going.
A teacher had rushed in and said, "Hey, have you seen the news? Have you seen the news?" And so class kind of stopped, and we had TVs in the classroom.
My husband and I were in the spouses flight, and so as we headed back to our lodging room to get showered and cleaned up before we went to the classroom, all of these spouses were outside waiting for us, and they had these looks of concern, almost tears in their eyes.
I recall walking out of a class that we were having that day and walking into an atrium in the building that we were in that always showed news footage or something like that on a big screen. And what they were showing that day was of course, the news of an aircraft having just hit one of the towers of the World Trade Center.
The teacher had put it on and then turned it off really quick and said, "Hey, this must have been an accident," or something like that. And we just kind of continued on with the day. And as we were going on throughout the day, we heard the second crash happened, and that's when everybody kind of knew, like, holy smoke, something's going on here.
And they said, "You need to get in your room right away and turn on your TV. Something horrible has happened." So Chad and I went into our room and turned on the TV and proceeded to watch the second plane go into the World Trade Center.
And it wasn't until later in the day when we kind of got back to our apartments and saw the news and began to process that a second airplane had hit one of the towers, that something was real, something was going on.
None of the teachers were putting it on in the classroom, so I was just trying to find out what was going on. And of all places, the Air Force Junior ROTC classroom had it on TV, so I grabbed my lunch and went in there, and that's when the tower fell. The first tower had fallen. And at that point, I knew that the world would never be the same.
And we headed into class. They'd immediately done lockdown procedures, so they checked all of our IDs as we entered the building, got into the classroom. We were going to celebrate one of our classmates' birthdays, but obviously it was a very solemn time at this point, not knowing what we were going to do.
So for me, immediately the reaction was concern and worry. My mother worked in the city at the time, and so I had to try, or I wanted to try and get through to find out if everything was okay. So I called back home. All the phone lines were jammed. You couldn't get through down to New York City. So several hours went by as I was waiting to, and continuing to try and call down, waiting for somebody to call back to me. And eventually, my dad or my sister got a hold of me and said, "Hey, I just want to let you know everything's okay. We're going to have to make it quick. The phone lines are jammed. People are trying to get through."
So at that point, after the second tower fall, I mean, it was, the world would never be the same, and I kind of knew that. And so that's when, after that, the whole country was just united and angry and wanted to do something about this. And I knew I wanted to be a part of something and do something about this and not just sit idly. But so that's when I kind of decided that I was going to join the military.
We had the TV on the screen, and they said that we were going to have to go back to our lodging rooms, and that for an undetermined amount of time we were going to need to stay in our rooms and not come out, except for to go to the dining facility.
But I grew up in a town where there were a lot of parents who were first responders, police officers, and firefighters, and a lot of folks lost their parents that day. And, folks that I knew, some of them knew well, some of them not so well, but still it was very sad time for us back there in New York.
And so that's when I decided to join ROTC in college and become an officer in the Air Force. So I knew I wanted to be a part of the fight. I didn't know what that part would be quite yet, but I knew I wanted to be part of the fight. And it wasn't until 2009 is when I actually finally got to be part of that fight. And I did my first deployment to Bagram in Afghanistan. And I remember getting off the airplane and thinking, holy smokes, like, this is it. You finally got to be part of the response, and you finally get to bring your piece of the puzzle to the fight. And so that was really important to me.
And it lasted for several days, and then we finally went back to school. But it made SOS very challenging and different experience for us. Most of my friends were trying to get back to their units right away in order to be able to get in the fight immediately. But the commandant brought us all in and said, nope, we're here to be developed and educated, and that we would all continue on with SOS.
I think it was important that that I saw those images on that day, and that those images will be ingrained in everybody's mind forever. Everybody has a story. Everybody remembers exactly where they were. Everybody remembers what they were wearing or what they were doing. But for me, that was a defining moment that I knew I wanted to be a part of the service. I knew I wanted to defend the country, and I knew that I wanted to get in that fight immediately.